Welcome to Everything Casual, bringing you original football casual videos from the golden era of the 80s and 90s, right up to current day. Football away day stories and historic clashes between football firms. Subscribe so you don't miss out. We upload videos every week. Today we are looking at the Bolton Wanderers mob, the Cuckoo Boys, and all the smaller mobs associated with them. We are going to listen from real accounts from actual lads that are part of the firm, as they tell us what it was like being active in the golden era of football violence. We will also listen to the point of view from other top lads from other firms as they give their true opinion of Bolton. This channel is a place that we can all reminisce about the good times and share memories. I try and keep the channel as real and authentic as possible by going over books that football lads have published and going through media articles. If I have used a book for information, I will also promote that book and try and introduce that book to a new audience that may not be aware of it, and hopefully drum up a bit of business for the lad that the book belongs to. Also, if I have got anything wrong in the video, or you would like to add a story or version of events, then just leave a comment. Let's give a shout out to some of the mobs connected to Bolton, such as Monge's Cuckoo Boys. Even though the old Bill and the media think it's Mongoose Cuckoo Boys, I will go into that later in the video. The Tongmore Slashers, Billy Whiz Fan Club, Horwich Casuals, Astley Boys. Anyway, let's dive straight in. The Cuckoo Boys are a football hooligan firm associated with Bolton Wanderers Football Club. They emerged during the rise of the casual subculture in the early 80s, a period marked by the formation of numerous such groups across England. The name Cuckoo Boys is believed to be derived from the Cuckoo Bridge area in Bolton, which served as a frequent gathering spot for the group. As the years went by, all the main gangs in Farnworth gradually merged. We kept bumping into lads from Highfield and Newbury, down at the local pub, and ended up being good mates with a few of them. The animosity between the different estates slowly eroded until there was nobody left to battle with. We soon realised that we were going to have to find ourselves a new set of rivals. As luck would have it, a gang from the neighbouring village of Little Hulton had arrived on the scene, looking to show us what they were made of. Little Hulton is basically a little piece of Salford that has been transplanted into the gap between Farnworth and Manchester. It's a giant overspill estate, which was used to rehouse all of the old residents from the Coronation Street style terraced houses that were demolished in the late 1950s. We nicknamed their firm the Spillamies because they had spilled over from Salford, and we waged war on them at every available opportunity. Now that the three main Farnworth firms were allies, we were pulling mobs of up to 150 lads. It was no longer just fist fighting either. Knives, sticks and bottles were all used on a regular basis. The levels of violence gradually intensified, and we became more than just a bunch of troublesome school kids. In the process, we made a name for ourselves throughout the neighbouring towns and villages. Most of our rows with the Spillamies took place either on the motorway bridge over the M61 or on the set of fields that separated Farnworth from Little Hulton. We have had some epic battles with them over the years. There were hundreds of us and hundreds of them, and the old Bill was setting their dogs on us and chasing us through the estates, sirens blaring. I loved every single minute of it. When we got a bit older, our battles with the Spillamies continued in a place called Blighty's in Farnworth town centre. It was a massive club with 2 different levels and a big balcony overlooking the dance floor. It was popular with hen nights and stag parties, and people travelled from all over north of England to attend the cabaret nights. As with any venue of its size, Blighty's has encountered its fair share of trouble over the years. The local street gangs from Highfield, Newbury, Central Farnworth and Moses Gate would go there every Friday and Saturday night, end up brawling with out-of-towners. Outsiders seemed to think they could come to Farnworth and throw their weight around without us kicking off. The Scousers were the worst. I remember when one of them threw a beer glass off the balcony and it hit a local girl in the face. She was cut up pretty badly, and within a matter of minutes we were all over them, kicking and punching them for all we were worth. We beat the crap out of the scouse scum, then we twatted them again outside. The bouncers were also weighing into them, and, if I remember correctly, a group of coppers eventually joined in and gave them a couple of digs for injuring the girl. The Manx were the other main group that we had trouble with. For some unknown reason, a lot of people can't tell the difference between us from Bolton and Manx, although it's blindingly obvious to anyone with a bit of common sense. The difference is that they are the scum of the earth, and we are not. Some of the other Cuckoo Boys have such a deep-seated loathing for anything vaguely associated with Manchester that they often tell me that they wish they had been alive to see the Munich air disaster. Although I am in no way condoning that sentiment, their words are testament to the levels of hatred that exist between the honest, hard-working people of Bolton and the dirty red scum that live a few miles to the southeast of us. Can I just jump in here? I don't normally jump in, but I just want to say that that comment just was a bit naughty, and not my words or my opinion. It's come directly from the Bolton lads. Anyway, let me carry on with what else they had to say in their own words. Wythenshawe is Manchester's biggest council estate, and its residents seem to think they can do whatever the hell they want. Well, not in effing Bolton they can't. Every time they showed their faces we would beat them black and blue and send them straight back to where they had come from. The Manx eventually decided that enough was enough, and a huge mob of them turned up at a local pub, looking to do us in. Within a matter of minutes all the punters from the surrounding boozers had descended on the pub, looking to do the Wythenshawe mob some serious damage. Most of them managed to get away, but one of their lads got left behind and was taught a lesson he will never forget. The local newspaper reported that the attack was carried out by a notorious gang from Bolton, known as the Cuckoo Boys. So there you go. That's the story of how our firm was born and how we got our name. Now let's hear all about the Bolton Youth Mob. Again, we will listen to what an actual member of the mob has to say. His name is Graham, and this is his story, all in his own words. The first game I ever attended was in the year 1994, making me 9 years old at the time. It was a first division fixture between Bolton and Notts County at Burnden Park. I had finally, after months of pestering, managed my father to take me, even though he detested football and everything to do with it. I can remember queuing to get into the ground and asking my dad all sorts of questions that had nothing to do with the match. All of my questions were to do with the away fans. How many will they bring? And can we sit next to the Notts County fans and give them stick? Now, to this day, I can't remember the score, what the game was like, or in fact, any detail whatsoever about what happened on the pitch, because for the whole game, I was watching the small pocket of away fans stood on the terraces next to Burnden Paddock. I found it all fascinating. The banter, the singing, the chanting, the general hostility shown to the other side. Unlike other boys my age, I wasn't interested in the football. I was far more interested in studying the behaviour on that side of the ground. I don't believe that you can wake up one day and suddenly decide, right, I'm going to be a football hooligan. There has got to be something in your brain that draws you to it, like a moth to light, and once you've had a taste, it is more addictive than drugs or a drink. But now, I want to tell you about my first ever battle alongside Bolton's youth firm. I received a text from an older Bolton lad about a week before this trip, telling me that some of the Halliwell youth lads had been battling with Bradford in Manchester some weeks before, and that this had been organised as a revenge mission. Halliwell's top youth lad had been in touch with Bradford by phone to make all the arrangements for a meet. I had spent most of my time travelling to games with the older element of our mob, and I didn't really know any of the youth lads, but I thought, F it. If it's something planned, then I'm game. I arrived at the Sharman Arms pub on Halliwell Road at about 10. It was a Saturday game, and there were about a good 20 to 25 lads there already, drinking and taking drugs, ready for the day ahead. 2 minibuses had been ordered, and I was told by Kevin, the lad that ran the mob, that we were going to join forces with Rochdale's youth for the day to fight Bradford. In the end, we numbered approximately 30 to 35 lads, ages ranging from 17 to 23. It was a good turnout considering we were going to someone else's fixture. I know some mobs who can't even pull that for their home games. Some of the lads in the pub were from Great Lever, Little Lever and Astley Bridge, but the core of the youth mob were from Halliwell and had grown up together. We had arranged to meet Rochdale's lads in a pub on Whitworth Road called the Brickmakers Arms, which was a short distance from Rochdale town centre. We arrived at the Boozer and piled out, and I thought that we had a good, solid mob that would take some budging. We filed into the pub one by one, and Rochdale's little outfit was waiting for us. They looked a lot younger, smaller and scruffier than us. One of their lads had a pair of mud-stained Reebok Classics on, and I thought fucking hell, I had a pair of them when I was 12. But then again, he probably was 12. At 23 years of age, I suddenly felt old. The only two lads of any stature-wise was their main lad and a fat kid with a black coat on. Them two looked the part. But, as for the rest of them, they were a joke, and we all knew it. We had turned out more lads for their game than they did. I would say they turned out a scruffy 20 at best. We stayed in the Brickmakers planning what we were going to do, and taking advice from the Rochdale lads about getting away from the police if it went tits up, because they obviously knew their manner better than us. We were playing pool and having a few drinks, when Kevin came over and told a few of us that if it didn't go off with Bradford, then we would just twat Rochdale, so as to not have a wasted trip. We started laughing and agreed, and soon word got round to everyone what the plan was if things didn't go the way we wanted them to go. We were there for Bradford, but if that didn't happen, we would be guaranteed to get it because we would destroy Rochdale's pathetic mob. Luckily for them, we got enough action out of Bradford to save them from a hiding. After about an hour, the police were all over the place, and they had riot vans and officers the length of Whitworth Road. We knew that Bradford's mob must have arrived somewhere on the scene, and so everyone started to get animated. The Rochdale lads started singing one of their songs, and we belted out our great Bolton youth battle cry, "We're Bolton, we're white, we're here to fucking fight." In the middle of the noise, one of the lads got a bit too excited and decided to punch a window through at the front of the pub. We decided to exit through the back gate of the beer garden, but discovered that it was locked on police orders. The main Rochdale lad persuaded the barman to unlock it and let us leave, which didn't take much, as the premises were being vandalised by the lads inside. We made a swift exit, ran down the back of the streets behind the Brickmakers, and remained unnoticed by the police, who were still lining Whitworth Road. There was a crossroads in front of us, with a car dealership on the right-hand side, and two tall, mill-like buildings on either side. Bradford's mob turned the corner at the bottom of the street and started to walk up between the two large buildings. They had also been drinking on Whitworth Road at a pub further down called the Tanner's Arms. They came round the corner in groups of around 20 until they filled the whole street. I would say that a rough estimate that they numbered of around between 150 and 200, and these lads wasn't kids. Fair play. It was a pretty awesome sight, and I'd not seen a mob of that size and calibre before. This was a proper mob, organised and experienced. However, we were as game as any of the lads in their mob. We were younger and heavily outnumbered, but we gave it everything we had. As their mob came up the road, a few of us went forward and stood our ground at the crossroads and waited for the Bradford hordes to come to us. I looked behind me, and our mob was scattered up the road. Obviously, a lot of people had seen their arses. Rochdale's young pretenders in particular had slowed down until they were nearly at a snail's pace, and, all of a sudden, the excitement they displayed at the pub had drained away. They were more interested in standing at the back and filming everything on their mobile phones than they were in fighting. I glanced in both directions, and I saw Kevin on one side and a lad called Harry on the other, so I knew I was in good company. Another lad called Bobby had advanced 10 yards or so further on into the street that Bradford were coming down, and at one point I thought that he was going to steam into them on his own, but he soon retreated after being hit by some friendly fire. A bottle thrown by one of our lot had clocked him on the head. At this point, the police were still scratching their arses on Whitworth Road, leaving both mobs to go at it. Bradford got about 20 yards from us and then steamed in. The 6 or 7 of us that was at the front took the full brunt, and we were soon swallowed up by their superior numbers. We took a few blows, but we gave as good as we got. Kevin Hart a tooth knocked out, and Bobby took a bit of a beating. I took a good crack on the cheek after missing a big haymaker of my own. The rest of our lads were now behind us as backup, but we just couldn't cope with Bradford's numbers. We traded blows with them toe to toe for what was only about 20 seconds, but it seemed like an eternity. The police soon got wind of what was going on, as the huge roar from the crossroads was echoing down the streets between the two buildings, and the noise of the battle was deafening. We scattered as they came in, clumping anything that moved, and then we made off in the direction that we had come from. Bradford were headed back down the street that they had come from too. We all agreed afterwards that if it wasn't for the police intervention, we would have had a good hiding, because we definitely wasn't expecting to run into such a monster. We were supposed to be settling a score with Bradford Youth, but we ended up tackling their entire mob. We were few, but we were brave. Bradford were soon bragging that they had done Bolton's main mob, but I would like to point out to them that I was the oldest lad on that crossroads at the age of 23. I would like to think that some respect was earned, coming from them after the fight that we had put up. I can safely say that Bradford's mob that day was the best mob I have ever seen, and we were lucky to get away with just a few cuts and bruises. We were soon rounded up by the police, although some lads got away and stayed in Rochdale. They tried to arrange something with just Bradford's youth, but it didn't materialise. As they had us up against the wall taking our details, one of the coppers asked, "Are you lot stupid? Have you seen how many of them there are?" And I replied, "Yeah, I know mate, we've just seen them." At that point, I put my hand up to rub the lump that was slowly starting to emerge on my cheek. We learned a few valuable lessons that day. Firstly, we learnt not to underestimate any mob, because Bradford had certainly given us a surprise. Secondly, we learnt that Rochdale has the worst and scruffiest youth mob in the country. And thirdly, we learnt what it was like to be together and to be up against it. I know it sounds gay, but we bonded and cemented trust and the friendship between us. Even in the stickiest of situations, we had the character and bottle to pull through it. This day was the birth of Bolton's Youth Mob, and it was the catalyst for us becoming one of the most active mobs in the country, not just in youth terms, but out of all mobs. We went from being young, game lads to a hardcore, ruthless group of individuals with a dangerous, uncompromising attitude. We weren't concerned with cameras or banning orders or jail sentences. We were interested in one thing and one thing only, and that was fighting anyone and everyone, anytime, any place. And that hardcore of lads are still there today. The fact that we are all on banning orders hasn't stopped our appetite for football violence. It has just made us plan better, prepare more, and go to even greater lengths to feed our addiction to violence. No town is off limits. No game is too big for us to turn up unannounced and cause mayhem. We have done it so many times in the past, and no doubt will in future. Now, let's hear what top lads from another firm had to say about Bolton, as he gives a very honest, brutal opinion about the mob, battles he has had with them, and his own historical research gathered. This is what he has to say in his own words. The police proudly displayed an array of weapons, including smoke bombs, chair legs covered with nails, rings with spikes, and knuckle dusters. The press reported that raids targeted several active gangs, including the Billy Whiz fan club, the Tong Moor Slashers, the Mongoose Cuckoo Boys, the Horwich Casuals, and the Astley Bridge Mob. The trouble continued, and Bolton continued to misbehave with trouble at Bristol Rovers, Rotherham and Wigan. Mass disorder occurred at the home game against Birmingham City, as Bolton fans threw bricks at the police and away fans after the game. Bolton qualified for the playoffs on the final day of the season, but again the day was marred by violence. Cars attacked and overturned. one-armed bandits were raided and locals harassed. When Bolton lost the playoff final against Tranmere Rovers in June 1990, 300 of their lads attempted to attack rival supporters. The police raids and subsequent convictions did in fact signal the end of Bolton's hooligan heyday. That, coupled with the introduction of CCTV, football intelligence and stiffer penalties, began slowly to have an effect. Trouble did persist, such as the 500 mass brawl between Stoke and Bolton in October 1990, and the running battles in Cleethorpes 4 hours after Bolton's away game in Grimsby in August 1993. But battles like this were becoming rarer. After a few years passed off without any major reports of violence, the club were reunited with local rivals, Blackburn, as both clubs' fortunes on the pitch nosedived. An NCIS report from a Division 1 game at Ewood Park on September 23, 2000, stated, "Serious disorder was prevented by an extensive policing operation. During the game there were 2 small fights inside the stadium. A home supporter was also arrested for shouting racist abuse at a player." Post-match, police watched 2 groups of supporters as they moved away from the ground. The 2 groups swelled to about 100 Bolton and 50 Blackburn. The 2 groups shadowed each other on the opposite sides of the road, separated by foot and mounted officers. Firm policing and the presence of mounted officers prevented a row. The Bolton lads made an attempt to break the escort, but again, the presence of the mounted Old Bill was vital in holding them in place. They were escorted to the train station. At 7 p.m, police attended an incident where a group of 15 Bolton were causing problems in a pub near Blackburn's ground. They were removed by police but then went to a second pub, where they again caused problems. They were again removed by the Old Bill and 1 lad was nicked. The remaining lads were placed in a taxi minibus, but 100 yards up the road the taxi stopped, and some of the Bolton lads attacked a group of Blackburn. 3 more arrests were made, and the group was escorted out of Blackburn. A number of Blackburn lads were involved in disorder in the town centre later that evening, with other local men. Another NCIS report stated that there was more violence at the return game that season, on February 2nd. This local derby passed without serious incident until the second half of the game, which Rovers eventually won 4-1. Each Rovers goal resulted in pitch runners, and the match score and celebrations of the Rovers lads led to a marked deterioration in the behaviour of Bolton. Just before full-time, paramedics requested police assistance as they were treating a Blackburn fan in the southwest corner of the ground, in view of Bolton lads that were making threats and trying to get through the segregation gates to confront Blackburn. The Old Bill intervened, and this led to a serious confrontation between police and a large number of Bolton lads on the concourse of the Nat Lofthouse stand. Officers used batons to disperse the crowd from the concourse and to defend themselves from attack. Once outside the stadium, the Bolton mob remained confrontational and hostile, and batons were again used by Old Bill to defend themselves. Mounted officers were deployed to disperse this crowd. As the supporters mingled on the coach car park, disorder took place between rival fans. That same season, scores of Everton infiltrated sections of the ground reserved for the home fans in an FA Cup tie, marred by sporadic outbreaks of violence. And in November 2002, 4 Bolton lads were banned for life from the Reebok Stadium. Stephen Barrow, Shane Durham, Graham Knowles and Russell Brooks were banned after being found guilty of attacking Man United fans in a local shopping centre in January that year, and were given 3-year banning orders. The NCIS report on the incident read, "A tense standoff developed in Bolton town centre before the match. More than 40 Manchester United gathered in Cork's pub, while Bolton packed into Yates Wine Lodge across the road. 60 officers in riot gear blocked off the road and used 8 police vans to cordon down the middle of the road. 2 of Cork's windows were smashed, and bottles and glasses were thrown as the 2 hooligan groups tried to get at each other. There were 20 arrests, and 20 more fans were ejected from the Reebok Stadium during the game." But it was not just local police and the club who tackled the hooligans from Bolton. 9 football hooligans have been jailed thanks to the American crime-fighting agency, the FBI, said one news report. The men, all Bolton fans, were caught on videotape last February, assaulting a Manchester United fan at Chorley railway station, but the CCTV was accidentally wiped by station staff. However, the tape and video recorder were sent to FBI headquarters in Virginia, where scientists were able to restore the images. Preston Crown Court heard 3 United fans were knocked to the ground and kicked repeatedly at the railway station. Stephen Pover, aged 47 from Lee, was knocked unconscious, spent several days in intensive care, and needed reconstructive surgery to an eye socket. Mr. Pover can only walk with the aid of a stick. 9 men, all from Bolton, pleaded guilty to violent disorder. Bolton have had many big rows and battles with their hated rival mob, the Red Army, from Manchester United. I haven't gone into details with those battles in this video. That's because I am going to do a separate video about that rivalry. It needs a whole video on itself to go through that one. I am aware that there have also been big historic battles with other firms too, which haven't been mentioned in this video, but will be mentioned in other videos. This today was all about the history and formation of all the Bolton firms, and just how active and naughty they were. I rate them, but I feel on the whole they are underrated and don't get the credit they deserve. Facts and quotes from this video were taken from the quality book called Walking Down the Manny Road by Doug Mitchell. I will leave a link in the description if you want to buy it. A must for any Bolton lad, to be honest. Absolute quality. Full credit to Doug Mitchell for that. And also credit to Andy Nichols. If I have got any facts wrong in this vid, or you just want to have your say, then just chip in with a comment. If you enjoyed the vid, give us a like and share it to your mates that might also enjoy it. Cheers, boys. See you next time. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you subscribe, you will be notified when we release a new video. It could be your firm we make a video about next, so don't miss out and hit the subscribe button. You can find me on Facebook or email me if you have a good story to tell. See you next time.